All right, so good evening, everyone, and welcome to our second day of talking about Zora Neale Hurston's book, Hitting a Straight Lick with a Crooked Stick. I am Felicia Durden, and I'm so happy to be facilitating this evening. So this evening, we're going to be going over 4 other of Zora's stories from her anthology that we've been discovering. So let's go on to our next slide. Just to remind us about Zora Neale Hurston, I don't think you can talk about the story without talking about the artist. And so she was a novelist, a short story writer, a folklorist, and an anthropologist. She was just a Renaissance woman, I would call her, just a woman who was very motivated and very talented in the way that she wrote. But she didn't just think about writing as a silo. She also focused on her community and making sure that she was providing her community's voice being held in artistry. During the Harlem Renaissance, we know that many African-American writers came to reputation for writing, and she was one of the most prolific during this time. So she was also a member of Zeta Phi Beta sorority, which I have to talk about since I am a Zeta Phi Beta sorority member. So she would have been my soror. So we always think about her as a finer woman who focused on the economy. So she wanted women to be able to make money and to advance in their lives, and equity for women. And we can see that today in some of the stories that she writes. We know that being a woman during this time was not easy. But in some of these stories, we see the strength in these women, and that despite the circumstances that they lived in, they were able to overcome. So what I loved about the anthology was that they were in the book in the sequence that they were written. So we can see how her writing grew over time. And so with that being said, let's get straight into today's first story, which was called Sweat. Now, Sweat, many people think was really one of Zora's best works of art. It has been considered her best work by many reputable reviewers. And it comes in the way of a Black couple who are portrayed. And it came in to be the end of the Civil War and consequently the abolishment of slavery. They had 2 main characters in there, Delilah and her husband, Delia, I should say, and her husband, Sykes. And Delia, and this is talking about women, we talked about how she had a strong sense of women. Delia is described as a hardworking woman. She was a washerwoman who did everything she could to earn an income and provide for herself and for her husband. So she was contributing financially. Sykes did not have to work. He didn't have to earn an income or contribute himself, because he was being kept. He was a kept man, relying on Delia's hard work. And so what do you guys think about that aspect of it? Hey, I see Miss Ruth. Hello. Yay, I'm so glad you're here. Welcome, welcome. Any thoughts on that and how she portrayed it in the story?
I want to make a comment.
Please.
You mentioned that her husband was a kept man.
Mm-hmm.
And even in this early period of the 20s, in the southern region where the story takes place, similar to perhaps where she may have been living or raised or knew about or experienced that life in the South.
Yes, yes.
So if we're talking about an African-American couple in this early period, and he being a kept man, would that feeling of being a kept man by a woman, even though she is his wife, would that have made a difference? No, let me rephrase that. Would that explain why, and I know the stories, other stories that the author writes about discuss this topic of abuse of women. But since he is a kept man, and she writes about his abuse of her,
yes,
I often was troubled in reading this kind of abuse by him, even though they were married for a long period of time, and she made money for the family, including him.
Mm-hmm.
My question goes back originally to, was his being kept,
Mm-hmm.
a reason for his abuse of her, which occurred so often
Mm-hmm.
that to me was disturbing.
Very disturbing. The snakes and all of that. It was just horrible the way he mistreated her. Chris, I think you bring up a very interesting point. I think that maybe he felt demasculated and was hurt, and it could have been why he cheated on her and abused her as a way to lose respect. I don't know. What do other people think? I think it's a valid question.
Dr. Durden, I have a question. I
Sure.
did
Hi,
not,
Michelle. Welcome.
thank you. I didn't have a chance to do my research on her as a writer, but I know writers often write about their own personal experiences.
Mm-hmm.
Because like you said, a lot of the stories do talk about abuse. Was she abused? And
She did have some abusive relationships in her life. Yes. Maybe not everything in here is true. I mean, the way she wrote about it, she must have witnessed some of this. But yeah, Michelle, she did suffer abuse.
because normally, like with strong women, and normally, especially if they're the breadwinners, they tend to either just walk away and leave,
Mm-hmm.
or they take a lot of abuse. But and especially with a lot of strong Black women, we look at that and say, well, if you're the one earning the money, you don't really need him.
Right.
But she, in this particular story, chose to stay.
She did. Mm-hmm. That's a good point. Why would she stay? What was it in herself that made her not be able to leave this abuse? Why did she not feel worthy enough in herself? Thank you.
I don't know if she chose to stay for that reason, because she was independent. She made her own money. She had her own business. She was a smart businesswoman. She had her own customers. She knew exactly what she was doing was women's work, gathering clothes and doing washing and all of the kinds of things that women typically will do that men aren't going to be doing. So I would assume that she chose to stay, knowing that her husband would have fits of abuse, to be abusive with her, but at the same time, where would she go? Because his friends may have been in similar situations, but his friends seemed to encourage his abuse of her. They ridiculed her. They didn't ridicule him. They ridiculed her because of her poverty, because of her way of life, even though it was with him. And the writer didn't write so much about others' lives, other Black women's lives. She wrote about her husband, this woman's husband.
Right.
It was just disturbing to me.
Well, the abusive cycle is very disturbing, and I have worked with many women who go through it.
Yeah, what would be the author's reason to keep bringing this up, this abuse, these situations, these occurrences? What would be behind the motive for the author to write about such occurrences that happen so frequently?
There was one place in this particular story where the author said she brought love to the union and he brought a longing after the flesh. Well, she worked hard and she was no longer the anyway, the attractive woman. And so his interest lagged there. And that's, I'm also supporting the ideas that have already been spoken, that I know in my own family, there was a product of abusive husband, and my daughter stayed with him because she had a son and was afraid that the father would have custody of the son. So there are a lot of different
So many
reasons.
reasons.
Yeah. Yeah.
So many reasons why women stay in those situations, and it becomes almost a normalcy.
Yeah.
I don't know, you know how the story ends where he's bitten by one of the snakes that he's messing around with her with, and she doesn't try to save him and he dies. I remember that one movie, The Burning Bed. I don't know if any of you remember that one. But it kind of reminded me of that sometimes they get to a point where they've had enough. And she couldn't take it anymore. She works very skillfully about this. I mean, women who go through abuse, they act like this. They don't, you wonder, why are you staying? Why?
Right.
We just don't understand what's going on in their mind.
She was writing about the 20s or the 30s.
Which was a different time where people just stayed and were abused.
Yes.
But it was still that same, she did let him die. I mean, she didn't try to rescue him. She was loving. But I think she had enough. She was like, okay. But you're right, it's very disturbing, all of the abuse. Tara, I interrupted you. What were you gonna say?
Oh, no, you didn't interrupt me, but I was
Okay.
at the same time admiring her and just horrified by what she was going through. But everything that Zora Neale Hurston writes about is so real today. It's fascinating to me that every story that we read could be a story that was written in 2021.
Absolutely, that's her magic. She was timeless. She was timeless. Let's talk about the feminist influence. From my research, the story did have a feminist influence at its core. She represented a woman who's willing to do everything to escape this husband's abuse. She's a working woman. We talked about that. Not afraid to do everything that she can to make a living, right? But his death was a relief. It released her from that abuse, and she could be free then to choose her own path. So that they see as a break from the male-dominated world many lived until a slow shift, and still going on, of an independent way of life. What do you think of Zora Neale Hurston as a feminist? You see that in her writing? Do you see that she's empowering women through their actions?
Was this character as the washerwoman, were her clients, if you want to use that word, but was she doing laundry, cooking, or sewing for white families? Were these, it wasn't clear to me, was she a washerwoman only for Black families or white families?
I would assume white
story.
families. Because I don't know how Black families would have been able to afford to pay her. So she was more of a domestic worker, which would have been during that time, you know, work that a woman could get and make fairly good money.
I think that given the times that she exercised such wisdom as a woman who, okay, these are your circumstances, what are you going to do about it? When things get really tough, I'm going to give him a threat that I'm going to tell one of the white people I know what he's doing to me, and that'll strike fear beyond belief to him, and that's going to terrorize him enough to maybe ease the pain for me for a little bit. She was wise and also knew the society that she was dealing with and how to best protect herself when she needed to.
Exactly. Good points. Good points. And like I said, this is considered one of her best. And we could talk about it for hours. I mean, it's so rich, just how she embodied this woman's struggle. And how
was there ever a play? Was there a play or anything?
I have not heard of it being a play, but it would be an amazing play.
Yeah.
I'll have to research that. I haven't heard, but it's beautiful, beautiful.
One of the things that bothered me though was, remember that discussion of the men? Where they knew that he was beating her up. They knew she was a good woman and was working hard. They said everything the way it really was, and yet they did nothing.
That was the times you don't butt in.
They did nothing, and then they talked about, oh, she's so beautiful. He beat all the beauty out of her.
Right.
I would have gotten to her if he didn't get to her first, but he's destroyed her and made all of her looks go away.
Yeah, yeah.
Mhm,
But you know,
mhm.
many times these victims don't let anybody intervene. I know we couldn't intervene in my daughter's life because she was adamant about protecting her son above all things.
Right, right.
So, yeah, there's a lot of reasons.
So many reasons, so many
Yeah.
reasons. Peggy,
Yeah.
that's a good point. Okay, let's talk about spunk. Spunk means feisty or lively.
Oh, can I say something first?
Go ahead, Liz.
You know how sometimes we say to ourselves, sometimes when we want revenge for something that occurs in our lives,
Mm-hmm.
we hope to see that revenge, but we don't usually do.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the fact that the washerwoman got revenge at the end with this rattlesnake who killed,
Mm-hmm.
and she was there to see him die. And so,
Yep.
so she did get revenge. No matter how long it took, she saw her revenge. I like that part.
She did see her revenge.
Karma.
Anyway,
Mhm.
okay.
Thank you. So Spunk. Spunk in this love triangle. What were your guys' thoughts on this story?
The story upset me. I was so
Tell me why.
disappointed. I don't know.
Why?
I was just the because they're so contemporary, and the fact that this guy was not Joe.
Mhm.
Joe,
Joe
not
Canty. Yeah.
not a typical stereotypical alpha male who's led by testosterone, trying to do things scared, but not valued by people, not even valued by the woman who's supposed to love him, up against the guy who's full of testosterone and privilege, you know, in this context, privilege from his size or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
The comparison of the two.
It disturbed you. It was, yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't. Yeah. It was hard. It was a hard one. What do other people think about spunk?
When I first heard that word, even though I knew what it meant, I couldn't help for the first time seeing that word in print and reading the word. The first thing I thought of was Lou Grant not liking Mary Richards, because
Mm-hmm. I remember. Oh, yes.
that's what I thought of. I like the descriptions, though, of the way of life for loggers, the
Mhm.
dangerous work of logging. I read about the logging industry in Flagstaff some time ago,
Uh-huh.
project. And I did read about the separate camps or housing for Mexican workers, African-American workers, Native American workers who worked in the logging industry in Flagstaff and the Babbitt family. And yes, there was separate housing for white loggers and their families. But I also read that for the families of color and the men loggers of color, safety measures were ignored for them because the industry could always find replacement workers. They could go south and bring in African-American families and workers. They could go to Mexico and bring in Mexican-American or Mexican families and Mexican loggers. They could do that in the Native American life as well. So they could always bring in minority loggers. But they couldn't keep the white loggers so much because they were always asking for more money.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't want to make what minority loggers made. They were always asking for better protection, maybe a union. But in this story, I saw that perhaps the accident that happened to Spunk, who was such a good logger, he knew how to protect himself,
Right.
and what to do in terms of his own safety. Was he careless? We don't know.
We don't know.
An accident? We don't know. Was
Or
he
was it intentional?
exactly? Or was he just thinking of something else for just that moment? We don't know. But I like the fact that the author did bring in the dangerous work of logging that some of us may not be familiar with or maybe don't think about anymore.
No, you're right.
Because
Excellent point.
logging in Arizona may not be the big business that it used to be. And we're here in the Maricopa County Valley of the Sun. And what do we know about Northern Arizona and the logging industry? So I
Mhm.
like that she taught us a little lesson about
She
it,
did.
industry of our state and about the danger of that kind of work and of
Right.
the livelihood of families and people who live in that way of life. I like learning a little bit more from her perspective. So I'm wondering, where did she learn about the
About
logging?
logging. She was just
She was
prolific.
in the South. Did she come to the northern region of our state, or where did she go to learn about logging?
She was a prolific researcher, but we know that my family has land in Mississippi with timber, and there's a lot of logging in the South.
Oh,
So it could definitely have been in the South where possibly she knew people.
oh,
But let's get back to that accident, or was it? He swore he felt somebody push him, that he said it was the man's spirit.
Dr. Durden, I just, does anybody else notice that somehow in her stories, these men get dealt with?
They do. They get their just desserts, don't they? He died
Yes.
too from his wounds a little bit
And-
later.
Yeah,
She does.
That's what I'm saying. You know, she's like, okay, they got over for a while, but then at the end, they paid.
Mhm.
for the-
Mhm. Well, she has a biblical, we're going to talk about the book of Harlem. You reap what you sow. So violence, you reap violence, you die, violently in a way where these men were mistreating the women. I saw that throughout her work. But it was definitely a disturbing story. I get back to Tara's point. But you can learn so much. Her stories are so rich. So she used colloquial English that was spoken in the South. And we talked about that last week, that she did a really good job of using the colloquialism. And she used it a lot, especially in her latter writing. It was a strategy. But some people thought that maybe it wasn't the best portrayal. What do you guys think? Did the dialect bother you? I'm just curious of your thoughts about it.
Last week I mentioned that I listened to a recording of the short stories. And to me, it's so lyrical, and it doesn't get in the way of the flow of reading.
Right.
You know the meaning of almost all the words. Occasionally there are words that are just slang that I've never been exposed to, but for the most part, it just kind of flows along, and it's very beautiful, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think
I
it's
agree.
beautiful too.
Yeah.
It doesn't get in the way, but she was criticized for it, that she was not portraying Blacks in a positive way by using it. But I don't think the stories would be as rich if she didn't do it that way.
Right.
What do you think about his superstition, thinking that he was being haunted?
Well, there was the black bobcat that appeared that nobody had ever seen before. Yeah.
Well, traditional publishers said the same thing about Mexican American writers and authors who use Spanish in different ways, the Spanish language in different ways in their writing. They were making the same criticism, saying, well, Mexicans don't read, or why are you writing in Spanish? Your readers aren't going to understand. So what I'm saying is that they were saying the same kinds of things.
Same criticisms.
Yeah, same criticism.
Yes.
Right. I didn't find it offensive. Yeah, I got the rhythm of it without any problem, and I understood that it was necessary. Sometimes writers have to use ways of expression that other readers may not understand, but because we're not writers,
Right. Right.
We have messages that we can write, but this is an author who uses her own ways and techniques of writing stories that help her explain what she's writing. She's using language or colloquial English to write that story. What's wrong with that?
Right, right.
I think every country, some of the greatest writers write in the colloquial. I know I'm Irish, and there's so many Irish authors that, you know, are world renowned, and they write in the idiom of the Irish at the time. And the story wouldn't make sense if you didn't have that language.
No, it wouldn't.
And Dr. Durden, I wanted to go back to you talking about the superstition.
Yes.
And I know in our culture, what the African roots and people like, well, I don't believe in voodoo or black magic, but it's part of our culture and based on what you've been exposed to. For a lot of people, that is very real.
Very real, very real. And it does, thank you. It goes very deep into our culture and our ancestry and our beliefs in superstition and things. So she hit on a really important topic there too. You could write a whole paper about that.
Well, as an anthropologist, she did write a book about voodoo when she studied voodoo. Yeah.
She's amazing.
Which I would love to read. I haven't had a chance to. Yeah.
She did so much. So we can see pieces of that in there too. Miss Ruth, I haven't heard from you tonight. Staying quiet over there on me. Oh, I think they have to unmute you. Oh, can someone unmute Miss Ruth?
You hear me?
Yeah, I think I can hear you now. Yes.
I am putting myself in the stories because I can relate to what she's writing. And
tell me, please.
and the bad part about it is that I was moving and my book came, but I forgot I had ordered it. So I think they took it back in the library.
Oh,
But
I would have mailed you one.
Beg pardon?
I would have sent one to you or came and delivered it to you.
Well, I've been so busy trying to get moved.
Yes.
Haven't done much reading, but I do relate to the stories that are being told. And I'm just happy that I'm here to listen to them.
Oh, it's so good to see you.
And I think that my English would be of the nature in which she was writing, because I grew up with a different language.
Okay.
And the people who were changing my language always said I was talking, we didn't talk right when we talk when we use that language.
Yes.
So it's always been and so maybe she's writing this story just to help others to understand what the dialectal speech done in the Black neighborhood.
Yes, so they can understand our dialect and how we speak.
An example, if we were talking, instead of us saying I could carry a bucket of water, we might say we would tote a bucket of water.
Some water. Yeah.
Or we would chunk a rock.
Instead of throw it, right?
So it is a Black experience for those of us that have grown up at that time. Today, my grandma, you don't talk right. Because you don't pronounce the words right.
Wow. I think the colloquial dialect is beautiful. As we said, it's lyrical, it's music-like, it's beautiful. Right. Beautiful. Thank you. Well, let's move on to her spiritual book, we'll call it, the Book of Harlem, which is written in the format of an Old Testament scripture. What did you guys think? Were you thrown off by the way she wrote this? How did you react to it when you first started reading? It was a little weird for me. What were your first impressions?
Oh, I liked it very much. It was very new to me.
Uh-huh.
Um, I really enjoyed learning that because I'm not churchy and I don't go to mass and all of that kind of thing anymore. But I thought that it was such a very good story mixed with history and a little bit of the religious perspective from her point of view. And it was very poetic, very poignant, and also
Mhm.
very telling that she herself relied on maybe prior learning of the Bible or reading of the Bible or
Mhm.
trying to understand what is said in the Bible. So I like that part. I really enjoyed that.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris.
Sure.
Others?
I think she's a linguist. I mean, she's picked up the language of the Bible as it's
Mhm.
translated in the older versions, not modern day translations. And I thought it was beautifully written. I loved it. It's the kind of Bible that I was taught from when I was young. Yeah.
Oops, I gotta go back. I went ahead a slide. Sorry. Wrong one. Okay, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. So this was
Question,
oh,
Professor? I have a question.
sure.
Written in the format of the Old Testament. Would you explain that a little, that word format, what is meant by the,
Like the Psalms or the formatting in the scriptures, how they are on the page.
oh,
With the chapters and things. Good question. So this one was the adventures of Jazzbo, who leaves Waycross, Georgia, to go to Harlem, and he wins his lady love. What do you guys think of Jazzbo and the whole story? We learned a lot from it. It's not my favorite, I will admit. It's not necessarily my favorite one of hers. I think because I wasn't offended by the fact that she wrote it in the way that she did, but it was a little different for me. I'll leave it at that. What did others think? Tara, I'm gonna ask you. I'll call you out.
Yeah, I was confused at first. I thought, wait, what is the format of this? How am I supposed to understand what she's doing here? And so I got a little bit confused, but always still pulled in by her beautiful storytelling. So the format was distracting. I was like, wait, what are we doing? But then reading the lyrics, the way her words are like songs,
Yeah,
still pulled me back in.
wonderful, wonderful.
I would like to see the format of a
Of
paragraph.
this?
Of a-
Oh, let me see if I can do that. Oh, you're asking me to, I'm gonna have to go out and then go back in. Oh, does someone have their book that they can hold it up? And then maybe, I don't know how I can highlight you. I'll pin that person and then maybe. I am actually traveling, so I'm not home. And I left my book. I thought I packed it, but I didn't.
but there's two sections in the book titled The Book of Harlem 1 and 2. One is called chapter 1 and the other section is not given a chapter number, but there's two sections called the Book of Harlem. They're very different. Are you?
She just wants to see the format of either one.
So, but it didn't confuse me. It was just added to the story. I liked, I mean, I thought that was good, a good technique to keep us interested in this version or this story about a Bible story.
Whoops. Miss Ruth,
I think
I'm so
you
sorry.
could think of it like it's numbered. Like the sentences are like scripture verses where you would see a bunch of words and they're numbered and then one paragraph and then you go to the next paragraph and that's another number. But you could easily think, well, what am I reading here because of all these numbers for the paragraphs, just like the Bible is written. That's what makes it different.
That's
it's
a
like
good
a
way to
list of
explain it.
scriptures when you're reading the Bible. It goes all the way up to like 55 lines and in one chapter. And so you're like, oh, am I reading a story? Am I reading a list of points? Sort of like the Bible.
Like an outline or something. Is what I was
Like an outline.
What
yeah.
is this? Yeah. I'm sorry, Miss Ruth, I'm not able to share. No one was able to show me their page, but I'll
Can you
get
read,
you the
can you
book so
read a
that you can
chapter?
see it.
Just read one of those chapters out loud to her so she can hear the language too.
Is anyone willing to do that?
Thank you.
I'm on chapter 16 right now.
Can you do that for us? We're going to read one of the sections for you, Miss Ruth.
Okay, chapter 16. Then spake he to his roommate and said, Alas, I've journeyed to rejoice with the maidens, but as yet none have smiled upon me. Have I not shekels in my pockets? Am I not young? Have I the face of a monkey that none will flirt with me? O sleeper on the bed next to mine, tell me how come.
Oh,
You see the old-fashioned language?
So that's what she did, Miss Ruth.
Okay.
Beautiful. Different.
She wrote it in the poetry.
Uh-huh.
Yep.
Yes, yes. Okay, if no one else has anything else on the Book of Harlem, I'm going to move to our last one, which is the Gilded Six Bits.
Oh, Dr. Durden, I did have something real quick.
Oh,
to
please go
say.
ahead.
What I found interesting, because it reminded me of like the Old Testament, the book of Job, the book of Songs. She split it up. So it's like you're reading the Bible and it's based off of this story, Harlem. So it then became the book of instead of
The book,
Harlem.
Exactly. Good analogy. Excellent. Excellent. So I like the Gilded Six Bits. This one takes us on emotional, she gives every range of emotion in this really well-written book. And so this would have been one of her later ones. It had glowing reviews. This one was well received. But it is, it's also about love. She wrote a lot about love, a love story of Missy May and Joe Banks. Many people says it reminds them of Toni Morrison's Tula. I don't know if any of you have read that. And they had a passionate love affair, but she always talks about acts of betrayal. So what were you guys' thoughts on the Gilded Six Bits? I won't give away much more of the storyline.
oh, the woman knew everything. She was not fooled at all by anything. She knew what he was going to do or think before he even thought about it or knew. I mean, he was so madly in love with her that he didn't think about anything else except what he could do to please her. Even though we're reading kind of like the Wizard of Oz, you're presented something by a man, but it's a trick, or it's not really true, and it's behind a curtain, something that's secretive, and you're not supposed to know. But she kind of knew.
Yeah.
Yeah, before she didn't want to. What am I going to say? She didn't want to ruin his surprise for her. Before it happened. She just kind of waited the whole time till the end for him to really come out with this trick or surprise. She was waiting for him so that she could finally see the joy on his face, I think, or maybe his happiness for her that, yes, it was a trick. Yes, it was a fake. Yes, there wasn't really gold. Yes, she knew all along. He may have known. Did she really, or did she not know? But she just was kind of teasing him along.
Right.
I mean, it was one of those things that,
Good.
you know, I mean, gold, really?
Really? I know.
Guy has a gold bit, really? 6 bits, really? What's he
Really.
doing here in my little town if he's got,
right. What did others think of the story or of the betrayal that happened, the cheating?
I think that Zora, I like that she showed humanity. She didn't focus on male bashing with, she had the element of abusers and hyper masculinity, but she also showed women in the same light of their humanity. And I like the last time we met, we talked about the woman who was trying to control her son. This time we're talking about a woman who is willing to go to these depths to betray her love for for money. but Zora is willing to tell the story of humanity from both sides, and she
Right.
didn't hold back. And she's not just male bashing; she's just telling human stories. And I
Right.
like that. I like the balance that she had with that, because I was so angry at this woman for the love that she betrayed.
Good
And I
point.
think Zora did a good job.
Yeah. She didn't just talk about no good men. She talked about no good for no women too. Good point. Others. What do you think about when Missy gave birth to the son?
Would you ask that question again, please?
When Missy had the baby, when she gave birth, that was another turning point. He caught her in bed with someone else, but then she had the baby.
Oh.
Mhm. And they said the baby looked like Joe.
Another human being to love. I mean, that's all that mattered.
Mhm.
She had so much love. It didn't matter if her husband cheated or maybe he lied, all these kinds of things, but she always had love to give.
Yeah. Yeah. She gets back to that. That's really all we have. Other thoughts? Those are the ones that have stood out to me in this story. Peggy or Michelle, did you guys have anything?
I have to admit, I didn't read this one.
Okay. It was a nice one. When you get time, go back.
I will.
Mhm.
Gonna read them all.
Oh, it's a beautiful, beautiful book. But I think Tara really hit it in that she showed humanity, how as humans we are fallible and we make mistakes. But I think she always goes back to the fact that although we're not perfect, life goes on. And she shows people in their true light. But there's never an unkindness in it, I don't think. People do get what they deserve. They reap what they sow. I think she's really good with psychology and just life in general and writing about life and how things pan out. She was brilliant in understanding human nature, brilliant in understanding how humans react. So I found it to be great.
I just like it when I read her stories. You feel like you're in the room with these people or
Mhm.
outside, and she just doesn't use a lot of words, but yet you know what they're doing, what the
Mhm.
bowl in their hand or what their eyes look like, or and
Mhm.
just little details that make you feel like you're right there looking at them. I love that.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. She does. She uses every word wisely. And the love that this couple, when you read it, had for each other, despite everything that happened, they had love. And I think that that's a good point to leave it on, is that people have to make their decisions based on what's best for them. And I think in all of her stories, that's what we see. She's great. She's great. Anything else before I show you or tell you guys our next story that I'm so excited about? I'm so excited about it. I'm so excited. Okay, you ready? You ready? Oh, now what happened? You guys know Colson Whitehead,
Yes.
the Nickel Boys. His Pulitzer Prize winner is what's our next story, and it's amazing. It is amazing. He has a new book out called I can't remember, the Harlem Shuffle. I don't know. I was on several calls with him and hearing him talk about his other stories, his new one, which I was going to propose. But when he started talking about the Nickel Boys, I'm like, we can't read Colson without getting back to this one. So this is going to be our next book. You're absolutely going to love it. It is a phenomenal book. I'm not going to give anything away. I just want you to get the book. And of course, I'm going to give some away. That's the way I do. So I'll have a raffle. So I have 2 books to give away, and it's going to be based on numbers in just a minute. So just a second. But our next book talk will be, you'll have time to get through it, October 28th at 6 o'clock.
What was the date you're trying to pick for the next book, Dr. Durden?
I'm proposing Thursday, October 28th at 6.
Okay.
I hope that's going to work.
All right, we will get with the museum staff, and that is the tentative date. Amanda, I know you're muted, but can you come in for right now? And just to let us know you did hear that date. And Amanda, can you kind of explain what you've done for our book club right now? And then we'll go back to Dr. Durden, please.
Sure. Thanks, Michelle. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I do see the date on there at 6 p.m. It looks like that should work for my calendar. If not for me, then I'll check with Brenda. But just to give everyone a little update on kind of the format of the book club that we've started is instead of listing the link on the website, we're really trying to, get interest and have people show their willingness to participate by emailing the museum email and kind of sign up that way. Of course, everything is free, and some folks have received the links or the invitation from others. And so I've added your names to the list as well. So we're just kind of trying to keep track of participation, but really the purpose is so that we can contact everybody with meeting reminders. If any dates change or anything like that, we're able to contact people and let you know about those changes and just keep you updated. So that's why it's a little bit different than when we started a couple of months ago, but we're just trying to kind of keep it organized and kind of keep track of everything. So if you have any questions, you can feel free to email me. Hopefully everyone's been receiving the welcome email and the reminder emails. But if you have any questions or any difficulty with accessing any links on those emails, just email me back and we'll work through it.
And
so
Amanda,
thanks everybody.
Also keep our Zoom safer by doing it this way.
Yeah, I think Brenda had expressed that in terms of, not just posting the link on the website so that maybe, we're not getting random people just trolling city events and, that are maybe attending without good intentions. So that's why we really just wanted to make sure that people that wanted to really participate and have wonderful, respectful discussions that, there's kind of that extra effort to reach out to the museum to ask to be added. And again, that way we kind of have people's contact information if there are any, issues or anything, but, I'm prepared if we do have any issues to ask people to leave the meeting. But, it's just been lovely to hear everybody's discussion so far, and I hope everybody's enjoying it. So hopefully this format, continues to work moving forward. So we do give everyone the opportunity on the website to, get the museum email address so that again they can contact us. So the information is technically on the website, so everybody, should have access to it ideally if, they want to attend.
Dr. Durden.
Oh, I didn't realize I muted. Sorry.
This is Chris. Can you give a little perspective on the author, the next author we're reading? Maybe a little who, what, where, when, and why he's well known. He's a new name to me.
Oh, okay. So Colson Whitehead is an amazing author. He is prolific. He writes all type of stories. He wrote a story about a zombies. He writes about, he says what he feels is relevant at that time. So he wrote the story Nickel Boys and also the Underground Railroad, which both won Pulitzer Prizes. Okay, so he is from New York City, and he's an American writer. Like I said, he's a prolific writer, and he writes some really bizarre books. The Intuitionist, The Colossus of New York, Zone 1. I like some of his science fiction type stuff. So he doesn't limit himself to one genre, which is what people really like about him. And The Nickel Boys was a 7th novel that he wrote. And it's about the real life story of the Dozier schoolboys in Florida. and the abuse that they suffered. And that's as much as I'm going to give you because you really want to get into it. The Harlem Shuffle is the latest book, and it's a heist story, which is another new genre that he's trying. But I think you're going to really like the way that he writes, the way that he's also able to tell stories. And he reminds me of just an activist who is not afraid to talk about things that maybe aren't so popular.
Oh,
And he really gets you to think. So you're going to enjoy him.
oh, good. Thank you.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome.
And
All right, so
Amanda, oh, I'm sorry. One more thing, real quick, Dr. Durden. I'm sorry to keep interrupting.
No,
Amanda, can you make sure you get the title so we can get this one ordered for our library as well?
Sure thing. Yes, I usually check Changing Hands, the local bookstore, for these books. So as soon as I get the chance, I'll head on over there and see if they have this title. Otherwise, I'll order it. But thanks, Michelle. I was just going to remind everybody that if you do want to check out any of the books that have been covered in previous book club sessions, we do have those available for free checkout at the museum front desk. So you can always call to see if it's available. So far, we haven't had anyone check out, but just so you don't have to make the trek over. But that's definitely a great resource that is available if you need it. Like Miss Ruth, if for some reason you have trouble getting anything, we want to make sure that you have a copy so that you can read through it and enjoy. So I'll let you know, Michelle, when we get that into the library.
And I have 2 copies, and I'll be happy to donate one to the museum.
thank you.
I can drop it off. I'll drop it off tomorrow at the front desk.
Oh, that's wonderful. So you're familiar with the book, Peggy?
My sisters both are avid readers, and they both sent me that as a present. So I have 2.
It's an amazing book. Okay, it's a good one. I have a signed copy of that one.
Thank you, Peggy.
All right, so I ended up putting names in a hat, and I'm going to pull names. And Joanne Cooks, I know you're here. I got your name in the drawing too. All right.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, here we go. The first one is, who is it? Chris.
Whoa,
Oh,
whoa,
Chris,
really?
one.
Wow.
Okay, let's see who the second one is.
Congratulations, Chris.
Thank you. Wow. Thank you.
Here we go. It's this one. It's this one. This one keeps popping in my head. Tara. Chris and Tara this
Great.
time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations, Tara.
All right, so I'll get those sent to you all. Chris, I think I already have your address, and Tara, I have your address, so we are good.
And do we pick up the books at a certain place, Doctor?
Oh no, I'll mail it to you.
Oh, whoa, great. Thank you.
Yeah, you won, so you get
Wonderful. Oh,
white
that's
glove
wonderful.
service.
Wonderful. Thank you.
All
And
right. Well,
Dr.
thank
Durden,
you
on
guys
behalf
so
of
much.
everyone, thank you so much for your great facilitation once again.
Oh, I loved it. I'm so sorry with traveling. I didn't have the book with me. I'm like, oh my goodness, but we got through. We did well.
Oh my goodness.
All right.
Wonderful. Yay.
Okay, thank you guys, and we'll see you end of October.
Thank
thank
you.
you, Dr. Durden. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Wonderful to join all of you. Thank you very much.
Take care, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.